George Friedman, there's a boom in technology at the moment around the social. Everything is going social. The internet itself is becoming social. Do you believe in this idea of the social revolutionizing not only the internet, but perhaps the world?
I'm not altogether sure what it means.
Well, I don't think many people on the internet are either, but it's exemplified by Facebook.
Facebook is a website within a website. So in other words, previously I had to create my own website. Now it's much easier to create a website within Facebook, and it's easier to connect the different websites. That's very nice. Whether it's revolutionary or transformative, I'm not quite sure I see how.
Well, there are authors like Don Tapscott, for example, who argue that we're on the brink of a new global collective understanding and that the internet is our global brain. What do you make of those kind of arguments?
I see the internet as a way for extremely diverse ideas to argue incoherently with each other. When I go to the internet, studying politics and so on, rather than a single amalgamated brain, I see an ongoing and rather unpleasant argument going on between people. Lack of civility. I mean, what it really has done is empowered the people who are inclined to make extreme arguments, and those people have time in their hands. The most interesting thing to me about Facebook is that it really involves the young who have time, and it really empowers the loons who have the inclination. And the vast majority of people use it for very sedate things like keeping the family posted about pictures about the grandchildren and so on. So what we're doing is finding a new venue in which to do normal things, but it's also a disturbing trend because people who were previously shut out of discourse and should have been shut out of discourse have poisoned discourse. And it's also made it appear that right-wing and left-wing movements of the extremes are far more powerful and influential than they are.
Do you see in America in particular these people coming to power?
I don't see them coming to power, but I think they destabilize power. It makes it much more difficult to run governments because they can have this voice that's so extraordinary. They destabilize the entire system. The Tea Party is an example of that, but also left-wing parties. The problem of the internet is that it allows access, but most of the people who are taking that access are doing so for reasons ranging from the ideological to the neurotic. So when I read a New York Times article and I scroll down to see the comments, my impression of the United States is it's a bunch of dingbats. But in fact, most of the people don't have time to write comments or aren't inclined to.
Well, you should look at the comments on TechCrunch. They make the comments on the New York Times look very civil.
Stratfor simply doesn't have any place to make comment to each other.
So if you ran the internet, would you shut off the comments section?
There's no way to shut off the comments section. Every time the internet makes it possible to comment. What has to happen is a greater maturity and understanding how few these people are, how marginal they are, that they don't represent the center of gravity of society. And what the internet has done, particularly this Facebook and such, it has given the impression of a different structure of society than actually exists.
But mainstream media is increasingly reflecting that kind of extremism as well.
Yes, and that's what's interesting. It spreads, it destabilizes. And on the other hand, the mainstream media in the United States, at least, is in decline. And each time they decline, they bring a new blog on board as if that's going to make a difference. And they don't understand how deeply their credibility has been hurt. There was a survey done by Pew Trusts, which said that 18% of the American people trusted the American media.
18. And
people would say, well, they don't trust it for this reason, that. They don't trust it because the media is no longer distinguishing itself from a blog. It is moving rapidly to voice opinions. You know, in elementary school, the teacher told us everybody should have an opinion. No, everybody really shouldn't have an opinion. There are a whole bunch of people who should not have opinions, and the teacher shouldn't have told them that. And that is one of the problems, and it's an American problem spreading around the world.
What happens finally, George? What happens to the middle? What happens to what you describe, at least, as the sane people on neither of these extremes?
Well, I'll define these as people who have other things to do in their life than ride on the internet. And what happens is they live their lives. They live their lives busily. They utilize this and so on. At a certain point, they become threatened by the wing, and they push back very, very hard. And it can be quite unpleasant. But, I mean, remember, most people don't have time to do these things that everybody's fascinated with. And those are most of the people.